Hey everybody, Gabe Suarez here, Suarez Tactics. So I'm going to do another editorial. I'm going to try and do one of these every week, every 10 days or so. And what I do is I answer questions that come up on my YouTube page, or on Patreon, or on our discourse forum subsequent to the Patreon page, and I just answer them in this context because. I used to say, and I still do, in my training classes, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Only stupid people that don't ask questions, and then they never get their questions answered. So here we go. The first thing. So there is a segment now on the Patreon forum that we're talking about an area of discussion called the dark arts. Okay, and it's basically how you can integrate OPSEC and PERSEC concepts: operational security, mission security, personal security, stuff that people that have been operational in the military or in law enforcement units and things like that will understand. It used to be a big thing back when I was on the job. I don't know if it's the same today, but and so, as usual, this devolved into the I want to hide from society. I don't want anybody to know where I live, and all this kind of stuff. And look, that's not the point here. All right, we have to enjoy our lives. We have to be able to have a nice home, a nice business, nice vehicles, and all this sort of thing. You're not going to do it by living in Harlan County raising chickens. That's not the point of the exercise here. The point of the exercise here is to have some things in place to protect yourself in the event that something unusual happens. Things like not publishing your home address, things like not having a bunch of stickers on the back of your car that tell everybody, how many kids you have and how many dogs you have, that kind of stuff. Just, there are people out there that will take advantage of you. One of the precepts in the book of the 13 precepts is that you should live your life as if there was an enemy around every corner. And, that's true. There very well may be. And so we don't want to give our adversaries any information on us that they could use. We don't want to do that on purpose. We don't publish things about us. Hey, guys, on Facebook, I'm going to be gone from my $1 million home for 3 weeks on a vacation to Cancun. All right, and now everybody in the world knows that you're not going to be at home, and somebody could target your house. Just as a silly example, okay? So if you're interested in that sort of thing, there's a pretty good discussion on the discourse forum, and like I said, there are layers to this. There are passive layers to this that you do every day. You try and protect your identity. You try and be watchful around you. Who's paying attention to you? And it doesn't have to be something paranoid. You just do it in a very casual way, and if you just adopt it as part of your life. I like to have nice vehicles. I like to have a nice watch. I like to live well, and I don't need to hide from people. So the whole live as a gray man thing, I would ask you, dude, if you have to live like that, go live somewhere else, man. There are times in our lives where we have lived like that because of operational reasons, but that's not 24/7, 365 for 80 years. Who the hell wants to do that? I sure as hell don't. But it's also about keeping options open should you have a need to transition from being the law-abiding, good citizen, everyday dude to something maybe a little bit more nefarious. And the time may come in everyone's life when that's a necessity. So the study of the dark arts, it's about that. It's about living your normal life with some protections in place, but having the options to do other things should those needs arise. And since this video is going to be published openly, I'm not going to get into what those things are. If you have an interest in that, visit the Patreon page, and then you can join the forum. It's just $5 a month, for God's sakes. It's $60 a year. You spend more on that on Starbucks. You can ask the guys that are on there. It's a fantastic resource. It allows us to keep doing what we're doing. And it gives you guys a secure place to read and discuss far from the eyes of the riffraff online, of which there are many, especially in the gun community. Okay, so that's as far as we go with the gray man stuff and the dark arts. That title for a great book. Anyway, all right. The next thing, a lot of questions about the lawsuits that the firearms industry has filed against the ATF and the Brace Ban and all that sort of thing. And guys are asking me, what do you think? Dude, I have no idea. I told you what I did. I have a number of SBRs already, and all my uppers are for those SBRs, and everything else is now just a lower. I suggest you do the same. I don't suggest you register anything in the Grace. Don't play their game. Just turn everything back into whatever you want it to be, and just wait and leave it alone. I think that these lawsuits have a merit. I think that thanks to the evil orange man that installed some conservative justices in the Supreme Court, I think we have a pretty good chance of overturning this stuff. There's even talk. I've spoken to some industry professionals that have far more experience in this industry than I have, and they believe there's a pretty good chance that the entire NFA will be nullified. Who knows? I mean, that would be really cool, wouldn't it? But don't hold your breath and don't take any steps yet. Now it's a waiting game to see what happens. That's all we're doing, and I don't think anybody wants to be a test case. So don't be the monkey left holding the SBR. Okay, all right. Next thing, there was a video put out by a prominent gun instructor with a very strong following in the fear of liability community, saying never talk to the police. Okay, look, guys. I don't know how things are in the extreme liberal parts of the country. I don't live in those places, and if you're smart and you have a good amount of wealth, I suggest you move and you go somewhere else. Okay, I mean, I left California some 20-some years ago, and you know what? I'm perfectly happy living somewhere else, and I travel wherever the hell I want to travel and everything. But I don't go places where the police are hunting people like me. Why would I do that? I just don't. Okay, and there are places in the country that are that way. Now, what I'll tell you is this: where you are already a criminal, why do you want to behave like a good guy? I'll just leave that and move on to something else. Okay. Now, never talk to the police. Look, here's the thing. I was law enforcement for 15 years, and I spent the last 20 years, 25 years or so training a lot of law enforcement people. And what I will tell you is this. Number one, the police are not out to pin a case on you. They don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, you know what? Let's see if we can find an average Joe citizen and pin a crime on him. Okay, that's not the case. They are going to do what they're told to do by their bosses. The people that say, well, what do they call them? The oath keepers and all that sort of thing. Look, if that was a thing, they would all have rebelled and attacked Washington during the COVID nonsense. Okay, because people's rights were violated left and right, and I didn't see anybody mount an insurgency or anything of that nature. So, they're going to do what they're told to do. They're going to do what their bosses tell them to do. But there are policies in place. There are laws that have to be observed. And the last thing that a police department wants is a lawsuit for somehow violating somebody's rights. Okay, I mean, look at how careful they are in behaving around everything today. So what they're going to do is they're going to follow the policy, and the policy says that they have to take an impartial report, they have to gather information, and then they have to make a decision based on what the evidence and the witness statements and everything says. Okay, so if you shoot the bad guy, okay, and let's exclude it being in your home, because that's pretty clear, right? I live here and he doesn't, and there's the broken front door, and but let's say it's somewhere else, okay, and they roll up, and there you are standing with your custom Glock and everything else, and there's the bad guys. Let's make it really good. Two bad guys, and they're both dead, shot in the face, and everything else. And the first officer rolls up and says, "What happened?" Now listen, let me tell you, he knows exactly what happened. He's not an idiot. Okay, he knows exactly what happened. He looks at these guys, and do you think that he's not profiling these people? Do you think that he's not already kind of knowing exactly what happened? Yeah, he is, but he doesn't know, and the evidence is only going to take him so far. So he asks, "What happened?" If you say nothing, and you clam up and you wait for your mouthpiece to halo jump onto the crime scene, and the evidence isn't such that it is immediately exculpatory, what is going to happen? You're going to get arrested, you're going to get taken to jail, you're going to get booked, and all this other kind of stuff. And like I mentioned in my Killing Within the Law classes, that's great for the law profession because they don't care about you, your future, your money, or anything else. They want to buy a new boat, okay? And so every hurdle costs you money. You get arrested and charged and booked. You don't get to go home. You either stay in jail or you post bail. And bail is cash, so you're out of pocket right there. Then you gotta pay your attorney. And look, here's the thing. A few years ago, I taught a class in Southern California, and it was attended by a number of prosecutors, deputy district attorneys. How that happened, I don't know, but it just did. And we got to talking about this sort of thing because we knew what their professions were and all that sort of stuff. And the question was about good guys that defend themselves and ostensibly justified self-defense shootings being arrested and charged and prosecuted and all this kind of stuff. Because that's what those people that want to sell you services and liability-based classes and all, that's what they want you to think, okay? Well, you know what the more or less consensus amongst these prosecutors was? That only about 3% of cases involving ostensibly justified self-defense shootings were ever referred for prosecution, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that the gun wasn't taken away and, a report was written and all this kind of stuff, but 3%. So that means that 97% of the time, it doesn't get referred for prosecution, okay? I asked them how many times, does it involve an arrest? And it was, well, that's very agency dependent. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But the more obvious that it is a self-defense shooting, the less likely it is that there will be any arrest involved. So, you shoot the bad guy that breaks into your house, you shoot the bad guy trying to carjack you, this kind of stuff. It's a different story if you shoot in self-defense outside, the outlaw biker bar over a bunch of knocked over Harleys and the grayer the area, the grayer the results. But so 97% of the time, never referred for prosecution. Okay, now that begs the question. Well, what was it about those 3% that led to a prosecution? Well, it had to do with some sort of withholding of information. It had to do with some sort of deception, some sort of undisclosed prior relationship between the shooter and the dead bad guy. Okay. So my recommendation, as I put out in my Killing Within the Law class, is that you give a statement, that you use the knowledge that you get about what the first responders and detectives and everybody wants to hear, and you use that to drape the mantle of victim over yourself, and you drive the investigation with your articulation and statements in a way that makes you the victim and your adversary the suspect. Okay? If you are interested in that, I will be shortly putting out some online classes, very much like this, probably using Zoom, where I lecture about the various topics. I take questions from the class and everything else. It's not going to be free, of course, because nothing here on earth is free, not even God's forgiveness. But it is going to be affordable because we're all living in a communist economy and nobody seems to have any money these days. But the quest for knowledge remains. So anyway, that's it for my commentaries until we get another Chinese balloon or some crazy shit like that. This is all that there is to talk about right now. There'll be more coming next week. I'll be doing some commentaries from the active shooter and addiction class that I'm doing in Tucson. That's going to be fantastic. I've got close to 30 people, I think, in that class. I'm using 4 assistant instructors to help me out, 3 or 4 depending on which ones are available. But it's going to be a fantastic time, and again, I'm gonna create some content from that to put on my Patreon page. The sensitive stuff will be on Patreon. The regular open source stuff will be pretty much everywhere. Okay, so that's it. Have a great week, you guys, and talk to you soon. Bye.